Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy Dale here, host of the Black and Blue podcast. Before we get started, I want to apologize to you, the viewers and listeners of the show, as well as the guest, Chief Jeffrey Yarbrough, for the audio quality at the beginning of the interview. You can hear some echo artifacts in the Chief's audio from around the 2:27 mark all the way up until about the 30-minute mark. The issue was corrected after that, and the rest of the 1 hour plus interview went off without a hitch. I just wanted to put that out there for you guys because I know you guys expect nothing but the best audio and video quality from the Black and Blue podcast, and that's not entirely what you received here today. Please continue to be a patron of the show, and I'll continue to do my best to keep putting out the best looking and sounding content. Thanks again, and enjoy the episode.
And some people think that when people are screaming, they think that it comes from a place of anger, particularly when, some people don't know culture. And when you and I, if we're sitting face to face and we're talking, we're riding, we may be talking loud, we may be laughing, we may be pointing, and we're not mad at all. But those that have not been exposed to our culture may look at us as being aggressive, violent, and we're none of those things. We're discussing, we're passionate, and that's the difference.
Brothers and sisters, I don't know what this world is coming to.
You're listening to the Black and Blue podcast, a discussion and celebration of the roles of African Americans and other minorities in U.S. law enforcement. Your host on the Black and Blue podcast is Dale Peters, a law enforcement professional with over 20 years experience in the business. Hop on board this Black and Blue train of interviews, current events, and pop culture conversations. So get ready. The Black and Blue podcast is coming at you right now. What's going on, Black and Blue fam? Welcome to the latest episode of the Black and Blue podcast, where we celebrate diversity in U.S. law enforcement. If you don't know me by now, my name is Dale. I'm the host. Thank you for checking out the show. And if you know me already, thank you for coming back. I really appreciate the support. Please continue to support the Black and Blue podcast by dropping by the show's YouTube channel and clicking those like, subscribe, and bell icons. And if you're listening to my golden voice on your favorite podcast platform, please rate the Black and Blue podcast 5 stars if you deem it worthy. And lastly, please be sure to check out the Black and Blue podcast social media pages. You can find us everywhere at Black and Blue US. All right, so today's guest is the Chief of Police of the Round Rock Independent School District Police Department in the great state of Texas. Everybody, please welcome to the Black and Blue podcast, Chief Jeffrey Yarbrough. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Dale. How are you?
I'm excellent. I know we spoke off air about it being hot out here in California. I mean, it's it's still summer, starting to wind down. It was in the hundreds, the triple digits today, so I'm dealing with that. But other than that, I'm alive and another day here on this earth. That's what's all good. How you feeling out there?
Doing great. I mean, another day above ground is a day to be thankful for. So I definitely understand. And here in Texas, we've gone through the same heat wave, and it's been cooler this year than normal. We have only reached about 101 degrees as opposed to 108 to 110. So it's been really good in Texas so far.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me. I appreciate you.
Glad to be here.
All right. So I mentioned you are the chief of police of a school district, of an independent school district. Why don't you tell everybody what that school district is and where you guys are located?
Well, I'm the chief of police of Round Rock ISD Police Department. I'm actually the inaugural chief of police. So I started the police department here, and I was very fortunate after a national search to be selected as the first chief of police for Round Rock ISD Police Department. There was a national search conducted, and there were over 40 extremely qualified applicants who applied, and God saw fit to show my skill sets and my ability and show how I was the right fit for this organization. We're just north of the city of Round Rock, or of the city of Austin, and our district is unique. We're about 51,000 students. We have about 7,000 employees, and we cover about 110 square miles, and we have about 57 campuses. And what makes our district unique is that we have schools in the city of Round Rock. We have schools that are outside of Round Rock in Williamson County. We also have schools in Travis County, and we have schools in the city of Austin. And historically, we were served by multiple agencies. We had the city of Round Rock, we had Williamson County, we even had Austin Community College serving us at some of our campuses in the district through a process of several years, going through a safety and security task force. And after that process, the board decided that it would be best, in the best interest of the district long term when it came to safety and security, to start our own police department.
Yeah, I mean that's unique in today's day and age, where they actually wanted to start a school district police department, where nowadays a lot of departments are not having those same things that where their district will allow that to happen. In fact, they're taking away their budgets and taking away their personnel. So it's a good thing. How long has your district been around as a police department?
We started. I was selected as the chief of police August of 2020. So we just hit our 1 year mark. We're 1 year old. And the development of our department and the creation of it, the decisions weren't without the challenges, because there was a climate and a segment of society that did not want police in schools. And that created some tremendous challenges. And it caused the district to look for other options. And when those options were exhausted, the best solution was to start our own police department. We had, in fact, some of our law enforcement partners had given a notice to the district that they would be pulling out of the SRO program, and they gave them ample time to come up with a long-term solution. And this was the final outcome and byproduct of that.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. The whole confluence of circumstances helped out on that decision right there, the implementation of that. So it's a good thing. How many sworn is your department?
Well, currently we're at 31 officers, and that provides us the bare minimum that we need to provide the coverage at every one of our high schools, our middle schools, and a patrol section that provides coverage at all of our elementary schools. They provide the day-to-day patrol and response and react as a react team to critical incidents that may occur at elementary schools.
All right. How many high schools do you guys serve?
We've got 5 traditional and 2 non-traditional.
Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah, you guys got it all, seems like there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And since you've been there since 2020, what'd you do before Round Rock?
Well, I actually started as the director of safety and security for Round Rock ISD. But prior to coming to Round Rock ISD, I was the chief of police. I was the inaugural chief of police of Bastrop ISD. I started the school district police department there in Bastrop. So that was
you're the man to call to start out a department. Yeah, you're the man to call for starting up a department, huh?
Well, I tell you, it is a unique privilege. It really is a unique privilege to have that opportunity to invest those skill sets and that training and experience in a manner to develop school policing. Because again, school policing is not the same as street policing. And you, with your experience, you know very well that you have to have the right temperament, the right mindset to serve students. Because here in Austin, I know some of the listeners may know of Austin, and you know about downtown Austin, you got 6th Street. Well, I usually tell people that you can't police 6th grade the same way you police 6th Street. There has to be a different mindset. There has to be a different approach, because our environment dictates our tactics, and you have to recognize that we're dealing with children, with adolescents, immature, reckless behaviors, and we can't look at those as we do adults on the streets who because these kids have never even grown up. They don't know what they don't know. And if
Right.
you criminalize their behavior at the onset, it creates a lifetime of challenges for them. So you have to have a different mindset when you come into a school policing environment, as you well know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because right now I'm assigned as an SRO for one of our high schools in my police department, and yeah, it is totally different from when you're out on the street. And I've worked task forces, major crime task forces, and CSAM task forces, child sexual abuse material task forces. So I've done all that, and it's a little different. Dealing with adults and dealing with kids that, like you said, they're still developing and don't know what they know right from wrong, but they still make mistakes as we all did at that age.
Absolutely. And when you think about the experiences that you're talking about and the experiences that I've had prior to working at the Bastrop ISD, I worked for the Travis County District Attorney's Office, where I worked in the Public Integrity Unit. And before that, I was the chief of police, the first black police chief in the city of Tulia. And some people may know about the history of Tulia here in Texas. Years ago, there was a gypsy cop who went to Tulia and arrested about 10% of the black population and said that they were selling him dope. And as the cases went through and were adjudicated and investigated, all of these people were arrested and sent to prison. But as the investigations unfolded, it was determined that some of the people he claimed sold him dope. And at the time that he had the timestamps and the evidence received, some of these people were actually had produced receipts of when they were in Oklahoma City at a bank. So it was learned that he had falsified these cases over the time that he was there to elevate his credibility, but to destroy the lives of others. So I was the first black chief of police in the city of Tulia, and I was there a short time, and I was promoted to assistant city manager and chief of police. And before that, I worked as a senior investigator for the State Bar of Texas, where I investigated cases against attorneys, filed against attorneys in the state of Texas. Prior to that, I was very fortunate to have worked for the Texas Attorney General's office, and I was assigned to working major crimes. And so I worked somewhere around 100 plus homicides during my time at the state.
Yeah. And now you're working in the school environment, and you see the difference between, like you said earlier, adult offenders and juvenile offenders, and the kind of nuances you got to deal with there. So yeah, we appreciate you, all those experiences. We appreciate you on that.
And it's interesting too, because when you think about the experiences that we have, when you start out the gates, as an officer, when you start out as a police officer, sick 'em is something that we love. When they tell you sick 'em, you go get them, and you build your street cred. That's the way you're geared. You're trained to build your street cred on the number of arrests you make, the number of citations you issue, the number of drugs you find, the number of weapons you find. In school districts, that mindset has to be totally different. And I tell people all the time, any school police officer can be a patrol officer, but not every patrol officer can be a school police officer.
That part.
It's a specialized area of law enforcement.
Yeah, it is. And you mentioned earlier about the Tulia, city of Tulia, and the other places you've been. What sort of demographics do you guys have in Round Rock and the other cities that you serve?
Well, interestingly, in the city of Round Rock, in Williamson County and in our school district, the demographic is probably about 9% African American. It's about 17% Asian. It's about 28% Hispanic. And so it is a diverse population that we serve. The beautiful thing about it is when I became the chief of police, I said, I'm going to approach the hiring process very objectively. I made sure that I involved a representative from our equity. We have an equity task force. I wanted to make sure I had a person that was part of the equity task force on the hiring board. I also had, our department is very unique. I have a behavioral health services department inside the police department. And to my knowledge, we're the only school district police department that has I have 10 social workers that work inside my police department, that work alongside my officers so that we can address the critical issues that students are dealing with when it comes to social, emotional, behavioral health issues. So I have those people a part of the interview board. At this point, we've got approximately what's so interesting about 30, I would say 32% of our department is black, 32% of our department is white, 32% of our department is Hispanic, and about 4% of our department is Asian. And that wasn't by design, that was just creating an objective hiring process and hiring panel that look for the most qualified person. And you'd be amazed at the number of officers that come out as the lead and as the top when you have an objective process rather than going in and looking at other issues. You know, some people will look and say, well, this guy is tactically sound and he former SWAT, and so they'll look at that person and bring that person in, but that person may not align with the direction, the vision, and mission of your department. So when you look at the demographics in our community and you look at the demographics in our department, we far exceed when it comes to diversity what the national standard is and what the standard is in our environment or our communities.
I'm glad you covered that, because I was going to ask you if when you're looking for lateral officers as opposed to new officers, and you pointed that out, officers that are tactically sound and have done all these different sorts of things, does that really is that conducive to a school law enforcement type of officer or setting? And it may not. It may, because obviously officers are there for critical incidents and things of that nature. But all of our officers are trained. We would hope to be able to handle those incidents. But on a day-to-day basis, relating to the kids out there, you want an officer and you need an officer that can do that.
Absolutely. And you're looking for an officer that's diverse, not only in when it comes to diversity and cultural experiences, but you want an officer that's diverse in experience. Having an officer that has spent 20 years as a SWAT team member, he may not be conducive to what you're looking for in a school district. It's like, you may have the best drill sergeant in the Marines who retires. Does that make him the most effective second grade teacher? You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
right. Yeah.
You're questioning it because you're geared different. And so you have to look at many factors when you decide who you're going to bring into your school setting, because at the end of the day, we have to recognize that we're protecting and we're responsible for the most valuable assets that any family, any person has. And that's the children. And, it's kind of like when I work narcotics and you've worked narcotics. When you work narcotics and you go into a drug house and you breach the door, you throw a flashbang in, you could care less where that flashbang lands. If it blows up the flat screen TV, it blows it up. But you can't use those same tactics in the Smithsonian. And so my point with that is you can't use the same tactics that we use on the streets in a school setting, because again the clientele that we serve and the valuable asset that we serve in our students deserve so much more.
Yeah, no doubt. And also on the flip side, you also don't want an officer who's thinking that they're going to go to your department to kind of retire on the job, right?
Absolutely. I'll tell you, and what one thing that we do is we make sure that we lead by example. If I'm working patrol at night from 11 to 3 because I may not have someone on and I'm answering night calls, guess what? That if I can do it, don't come tell me you can't do it. And you're looking for officers that have that next gear, because if you're looking to retire, this isn't the place to retire, because our kids deserve so much more. If you're looking for a place to where you can grow and you can develop and you can learn, this is the place to be. And in a school setting, it is that. I do presentations around the country, and sometimes I'll talk about and we'll get to it about the school policing model that I created, but I talk about when I talk about the type of officers that we're looking for in school settings, and I'll ask, do you think that I'm saying that we should have fluffy and furry officers? And some people say no, and I say, well, I'm saying yes. Because if you're going to be an officer, you better have some sheepdog in you. You know what I mean? And
Right, right.
you got to have somebody that's got some sheepdog in them that's going to protect those kids. And anyone that's going to fear the sheepdog has to be the wolf, not the kids. And so that's one of the things is making sure that you're hiring officers that have that ability to protect these kids with everything in them, but at the same time know how to protect them in a way to where they don't feel threatened and intimidated. They look at us as the superhero and the super sheroes, not the boogeyman.
No doubt, no doubt. I love that. I love hearing that. So tell us a little bit about you. What was your journey in the law enforcement? Where'd you come up? Are you from Texas? What's your story here?
I'm from the oldest town in Texas, Nacogdoches, and it's in deep East Texas. The name was so unique that we had to learn to spell it in a song. So my parents are from there, and interestingly, my dad.
Do you remember the song?
Oh yes, sir. I remember the song. I mean, otherwise I couldn't spell it.
Okay. That's kind of like Mississippi. We had to learn how to spell Mississippi with the M I cricket letter I cricket letter.
Humpback.
For real.
I know. Yeah. So I'm from Nacogdoches. My dad is he retired. He's a retired police officer there, but he is actually the elected constable there. My dad was in law enforcement about 25 years, retired, and came back and ran for constable. And so now my dad's he's a minister in Nacogdoches. He's an elected constable. My brother's a minister in Nacogdoches. And he's a chief of police of a school district. And I'm a chief of police here in Round Rock. So I think, sometimes I tell, people ask, well, why did you get into law enforcement? I always say that it's not a profession. I've learned, historically I thought it was, but I've learned that it's not a profession more than it is a calling. I think I was called to serve, and it was my destiny to become a law enforcement officer, because professions like this need people like us. And because we're dealing with people like us every day, and we have that opportunity and the responsibility, which is a heavy responsibility, to make sure that we are creating an image and a legacy that doesn't disproportionately impact people, particularly Black, Brown, and students who are disproportionately impacted or most marginalized. But we're creating opportunities where they have the opportunity to succeed, not creating the historical traps that we've seen in law enforcement in some places, in some cases, that have set traps for us to fail.
Right. Yeah, I understand that wholeheartedly. And then, so, your dad was already in law enforcement. Are there others in your family that were in law enforcement too? Or how did your mom feel about you getting into it?
My dad was the first in our family to go into law enforcement. It was interesting coming out of school, with my dad being a police officer and being a minister. I always said, with the role model that I have in him, if I've got three options, I either go to jail, I go to hell, or I join. I become a cop. So that was one of the reasons I decided to become a cop. Is because growing up poor, and my dad and my mom were separated. They ultimately divorced, and there are five of us. So my mom raised all five of us, my brother and my three sisters and I. On a salary of about, she's probably making $30-$40, or maybe $140 a week, and rent was $50 a week, and growing up in that environment, I remember when we first moved, when they divorced or separated, we first moved into the hood. I remember the very first kid I met in the hood asked me, the very first question, I was 10 years old, asked me, first question, have you ever stolen anything? And the only thing I remember at that time stealing was a watch out of the Fruit Loop box in kindergarten. You know what I mean?
Right.
But in the hood, you learn fast. Because you're exposed to a lot. But my mom, she was oh my goodness, she was one of those ladies who There are times you have to, she got $3, and so you're buying a loaf of bread, you're buying $1 worth of bologna and some cheese, and she's making sure all five of us are eating before she did. My mom was one
Yeah.
of those who she grew up in an environment where struggling was the way of life, but she would do without to make sure we had. And when I she supported everything we did because she felt like, and my dad was the same way. He was like, if y'all don't do better than we did, you fail. And my mom
Right.
was so proud, even up until the day she died. One of the things she said, and I'll never forget, the day she was dying, we were around the bed. She said, Mama just wants y'all to know that Mama thank y'all. Mama thank y'all so much for what y'all have done. I mean, when you think about that your mom is proud of you and you've seen the struggles and the rough side of the mountain she's gone up. Oh man, and growing up and seeing that, that's why it made it for, it's like you got to do everything you can to make that woman proud, to make that woman's life, as long as she had life, making her life as easy as you possibly can. So when you grow up in the hood, you grow up hard, but you grow up good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what is important, and that's why you and I both, and a lot of officers know that this uniform is all it is an opportunity. Just because we've got this on, it doesn't mean our hood pass is revoked. We still got that. We still go
Right.
back there because it's in us. Tomorrow, if I lost everything, I can still go back to Third Street in Nacogdoches and live.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
that's my foundation. And so my mom was just like my dad and others in my family, just like up until she died, and even family now, they're very proud of the fact that we became the roses growing through the concrete and got out of that,
Yes. Yes,
but didn't
indeed.
forget where we came from.
Didn't forget where you came from. Family. Family. That's what it's all about, right? Yeah. And speaking of which, what's your family life like right now?
My family life is fine. I live like I said, I live here in Round Rock, and I have a brother that lives in Pflugerville, which is just the next town over. I've got a daughter who lives in a little small town not far from here, and she lives with her mom over in another town, and
Mm-hmm.
she's grown up and she's a court reporter, so she's done really well for herself. I have
Okay.
another son. My son passed away in 2019. Actually, he passed away 10 days after I started my job here in Brown Rock.
Oh,
And
wow. Sorry to
but
hear
I'll tell
that.
you, but God is good. I'll tell you why. The most days, and in law enforcement, we get calls, and so I was at work one morning. My son called me, and he was actually going to school at night, or he was going to school during the day and working security at night. And so he called me one morning. It was actually about 7:45 in the morning, and I was meeting with some people, and so I called him afterwards, and I said, "Hey, what's going on, Banjo?" His name is Brandon, and he said, "Hey, Dad, are you in Austin?" I said, "No, no, I'm here working." I said, "What you got?" He said, "Well, I got a flat tire." And so I said, "Well, where are you?" He said, "I'm at my job." And so I went down there. When I got there, he was sleeping in his car, and so I knocked on the window. He woke up, and for some reason, I had this feeling when I looked at it. I felt real sorry for him. I felt sorry for my boy. And so I asked him, I said, "Do you have a jack?" He said, "No, sir, I don't have a jack." I said, "Okay, well, I got one in my car." So I told him to get his tire out of his car, and I'm in a suit at the time. And so I asked him, I said, "Well, go ahead and get the tire out. I'll go ahead and jack it up." And again, I'm in a suit, so I jack his car up, and I'm changing the tire. And after I finished, we stood there and talked for a little bit. He said, "Well, Dad, I'm going to go ahead and take this tire over to Discount Tire and get it fixed." I said, "All right, well, I'm going to get back to work. I love you, boy." And he hugged me and he said, "Love you too, Pops." Later found out, as I pulled out of the parking lot, a minute and a half after I left, his boss said that my son got out of his car, took a step, and collapsed right there on the scene, and that's where he died. And but you look at things in life and you can say, "Oh my goodness, I could have so much regret. I would have had regret if I had not gone. But I
Yep.
have so much thankfulness in me that because of the opportunity that I had to the last time anyone ever hugged him was me. The last person he ever hugged was me. The last person he ever heard say, "I love you," was me. And the last person he ever said it to was me. Man, that's absent of him. that's something that motivates me and keeps me going day after day because I had that opportunity, and I didn't let work get in the way of going and taking care of what my boy needed. So, I thank God for the time I had with him, and I know I will see him again, and I will do the work here until I get there. You know,
Amen. Amen.
yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
love that. Love that. Sorry for your loss though. But
Thank
that's a
you.
great,
I
wonderful
appreciate
story.
that.
Wonderful story.
Yes, sir.
2020, and all the way up to today, I don't know how it is in Texas, with the COVID, and that's what I'm getting at. How's the COVID affecting you guys in the schools? Are the schools fully open? You guys doing any mask mandates? How's all the COVID affecting the students and the staff within Round Rock and your surrounding areas that you guys service?
COVID has been it's one of the most unique situations and events that not only have we in law enforcement had to face, but we as a community and as a world. I mean, this is something that has literally changed the world.
Yep.
And trying to cope with it and trying to adjust and modify your practices to align in ways that keeps everyone safe is extremely challenging. Here in Round Rock, we're no different than places around the country, in fact, around places around the world where when you're having the outbreaks in some states, you're having the outbreaks here. And when you're seeing the numbers increase and with the Delta variant, we're having those same challenges where we have students, we have staff members who are contracting COVID. I've had officers in my department who've had COVID, and with the breakthroughs that have occurred with those that are vaccinated, we've had officers, we've had staff members, we've had community members who have been negatively impacted by the COVID uh, pandemic. Here in Texas, a we don't have a mask mandate and we don't have a vaccine mandate. You have school districts that have, and that the governor's order um, prohibits um, public entities and school districts from mandating masks. There are several school districts, including Round Rock ISD, that made the decision to mandate masks because of the number of outbreaks that have occurred here inside Round Rock ISD. So it is a challenge, and people are trying to find the best way to navigate this to make sure that we're providing the safest environment. We're creating the safest uh, practices and procedures so that and systems and educational process so that students can get the best learning and the most effective learning outcomes possible given the circumstances. And I'm talking about literally a grave circumstance that we're dealing
Yep.
with in this country and this community.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And kids, they needed to come back from that distance learning, at least that we did. And you could see all how it affected them, emotionally and academically as well. Because a lot of kids they need that one-on-one instruction, as we all. I know I did. I would much rather have the one-on-one in-person instruction as opposed to distance learning. But that hopefully we're getting through that, and the kids are getting better for it. Because that distance learning, let me tell you, about my kids. I had a couple. I got one that's still in high school, senior, and then one that graduated right during the pandemic at 2020. And let me tell you, he didn't have a senior prom. He didn't have the traditional graduation. He didn't have all these things that we took for granted as high schoolers. And it is what it is. He's moved on. He's in college now, and hopefully he'll get a traditional graduation experience there. But they just opened up. This is his first
Wow.
year. His first year in college was all distance learning. So yeah,
Wow.
they just
Wow.
opened up.
It's been a
So
challenge.
yeah,
And it's amazing though when you consider the challenges that people are facing that you can still find some people with the smile.
yeah,
Some people are struggling. It's like when you consider the weight that's been on this world, the weight that's been on this community, the weight that's been on law enforcement, even during the George Floyd incident and the challenges that law enforcement's facing and continues to face, the challenges that communities have faced and continue to face. even in the midst of all of the tragedy, in the midst of all of the frustration, the anger, the mood swings, because we're seeing the political climates change and move from one end of the pendulum is moving one end of the spectrum to the other. It's amazing, and it's sometimes refreshing when you can find somebody that doesn't have the mask on and you can see that smile, because it lets you know in a
Yeah.
lot of ways there's still hope.
There's still hope. Yep. And we need
Still
that
hope.
interaction with one another. You know, we can see our faces. Sometimes when you don't want to see the other person's face, but
Yes.
but you know, it lets you know that you don't want to see the other person's face too. So you still need that
Yeah,
too, right? Still need that too.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
you brought up George Floyd and all those things that happened in 2020 as well. I mean, 2020 was a mother, let me tell you. But
It was.
yeah, but how do all those things affect your department as far as funding, people requiring or not requiring, but asking for officers to be removed from schools? I know you talked about you had some pushback when you were trying to implement your department. Some people didn't want officers in the schools. How did all that play out back then and all the way up to now?
Well, interestingly, I'll tell you this. When the George Floyd incident happened, you know, watching that was horrific. For some people, it was horrific because it occurred in the open, it occurred uh, uh, on camera, it occurred to a black man who was putting up no fight, who didn't deserve that. For me, it was horrific for those reasons, and plus the fact that I knew George Floyd. I actually worked a case, and George Floyd was a person that I'd interviewed actually back in 2013, and um, got a chance to know him from um, the case that I was investigating. He was not a person of interest. He was a person that was a potential witness, and getting a chance to see that this was a big dude, but at the same time, this was a big dude who had a big heart, who had some big challenges, who sometimes the football don't bounce your way all the time, and every now and again in life there's a reason why sometimes with many of us, you get the penalty called on you when you may not have committed a foul. And so, but there are issues in life that do plague us. And when I saw that, it hurt for a lot of reasons, because I'm looking at it from a law enforcement perspective, and I'm seeing the guy is no longer resisting. The guy he's
Yep.
handcuffed. Why
Yep.
not get him and put him in the car? You've effected the arrest. I'm looking at it as a black man whose life is being viewed by the individual that did that as nothing. I'm looking at it as a situation of this person is not somebody I'm seeing on TV. This person is someone that I'm seeing that I've seen personally. This is someone that I've talked to personally. So all of those things hurt, and they still hurt. And
Yep.
the difference is George Floyd is just the microcosm of a historical macrocosm that has existed in some types of behavior. And that's why it takes people who recognize those things and who have been up the rough side of the mountain that can scream from the mountaintop, that is wrong. We have to stop it.
Hmm.
And how can we collectively come together to make sure that we're changing the climate, changing the profession in a manner to where people are not screaming out defund the police? But I understand, and I'm going to say this as a cop and as a chief of police, I understand in many ways why people were screaming at the time they were screaming defund the police, because if that in some of their minds, if that's the best they're getting, they would rather do without it. And some people think that when people are screaming, they think that it comes from a place of anger, particularly when, some people don't know culture. And when you and I, if we're sitting face to face and we're talking, we're riding, we may be talking loud, we may be laughing, we may be pointing, and we're not mad at all. But those that have not been exposed to our culture may look at us as being aggressive, violent, and we're none of those things. We're discussing, we're passionate, and that's the difference. And so when you look at those things, and if people are looking and say, if that's the best we've got, we'd rather not have that. And not only has that been a wake up call in municipal policing or in county, state, federal level, it's also, schools haven't been exempt from that. It's also been a clarion call inside schools to defund school police.
Yep.
And I created the four pillars of school policing. And I'll tell you, as we talk, I'll talk about why that makes it different. Um, because again, you can't police in schools the same way you police on the streets, and parents are going to be more afraid if you're bringing officers off the streets that have that same mindset
Yeah.
or that temperament, and they're looking for crimes being committed by the kids they're they're uh, they're supposed to protect, and they're looking inward for crime as opposed to having the students behind their back protecting them. You have to have a change of mindset, a change of perspective when it comes to these kids, because again, you do something to one of these kids, you may be doing something to a kid who already has a negative view of police because the police
Yeah.
kicked their door in the day before,
Right.
and they took their dad to jail, they took their uncle and mom to jail. So you have to be very careful in how you deal with these kids, because the mindset that you create and you shape and mold by your behaviors creates a lasting impact, and they grow up with disdain, they grow up with vitriol and hatred towards police because of the experiences that they've had. And
Hmm.
I tell people all the time, they say, well, how can we change this? And I say, well, in a lot of ways we behaved our way into this, we're going to have to behave our way out of it.
That part. That part. Yep. Yep. So why don't we just go ahead and talk about these four pillars that you created for school police department, educational police department.
So I created what's called the four pillars of school policing, and I'll tell you why I think that it's so unique, because we had informal policing back years ago when you had communities that would come together and they would create policing strategies. They would patrol and have night watchmen protecting their property and their goods and their cattle. And then we moved into a formal policing model where you had Volmer and Sir Robert Peel. They created a modern. They were like the fathers of modern policing, but modern policing, and then modern policing moved up into community oriented policing, and we've had those transitions in policing, but there hasn't been a new era, a new change in policing. And what I've created is what I'm calling the four pillars of school policing, and it is the template, the blueprint and the template for postmodern policing. And what that's built upon is safety and security is one of the pillars. And when they talk about safety and security, I'll tell you where I think historically schools have been limited. They've been limited on focusing on active shooter events and active shooter response, threat mitigation, and that's where you put a lot of your emphasis. Well, safety and security is so much more than that, because safety and security not only includes the external and internal building hardening, but it also includes building those relationships with parents so that you're hearing from them what their kids are saying, what's going on in the
Yeah.
community, what they're liking to see in their police officers. Also, safety and security is also protecting not only kids from external threats, but it's protecting them from self-harm and making sure that your officers are trained to de-escalate. Your officers are trained
Hmm.
to recognize where kids are struggling, and your officers are trained in mental health as mental health officers so they can recognize when a student is in crisis. I look at how we train in law enforcement. A lot of agencies here in Texas, they go to the firing range once, maybe twice a year. And I'll ask them, okay, that's great. How many times do you go to the firing range? Oh, we go once a year, or we go twice a year. In the state of Texas, once a year is a minimum. And so I said, okay, well, how much training do you do in defensive tactics? Uh, how much training do you do in de-escalation? How much training how much
Yeah.
training do you do in mental health officer training? So you look at that, a lot of the training, a lot of the emphasis is on active shooter events, which when you consider the percentage and the likelihood of those compared to you dealing with a student in crisis,
Yeah.
or it's very low. And the chance of you interacting with a student that has social, emotional, behavioral, mental health issues is extremely high. So that's why I say that the training and the safety and security has to be holistic to include much more than just the threat mitigation and active shooter response. You have to look at serving that child. The second pillar is equity. And We focus on in education equity, you can't focus just on one race over another because you serve a diverse population. So we focus on serving the whole child, meeting every student at their need. Not and you know, some people may push back when I say we don't look at making sure we treat every student equal because you can't treat every student equal. We need to make sure we're treating them equitable. And what do I mean by that? We had an officer that we interviewed and we asked him, what's the difference between equality and equity? He said, equality is giving every student a pair of shoes. Equity is giving every student a pair of shoes that fits. So when you look at meeting students at their needs, you have to recognize that every student is different and every need is different. So your goal
Yeah.
is to find that student and what they need to make them succeed and to give them the best chance at success because there are obstacles in their way. There have been obstacles in your way and my way, yet we've overcome those obstacles by the help of many and by the opportunities and people giving us that chance to succeed, not creating barriers that divert us immediately to the criminal justice system. And
Right.
so our goal is to make sure that we're putting those kids' needs first. And some people say, well, if you got a kid that may not be doing good academically, but you got one that's doing really well in academics, focus on the one that's not doing good academic and over the other. And it's like, no, that kid that's doing well academically may need your attention. They may need you to come and watch them play a game.
Yes.
They may need that kind of support. So you recognize what these students need and you give them what they need, meet them at their need so that they can succeed. The third pillar is behavioral health. Again, we want to make sure that if there's a critical incident when a student is in crisis when it comes to social, emotional, behavioral, or mental health issues, that we're giving those students the resources that they need to help them overcome those critical situations so that they're not being criminalized because they're lashing out through frustration, through anger, through seeing that mom's struggling at home and you don't want anybody talking to you at school and the first person that goes off, they punch him in the mouth and now they've got a case that compounds the problems at home and compounds the problems for the kid. So you have to look and in law enforcement, one thing that we've done really well over the years when we're solving cases is we look for the who, the what, the where, and the when. But in school policing and in this model, in order to help kids, you have to look for the why. What underlying issues exist that cause them to act out or respond? Because there's always going to be an underlying issue. And also, we're making sure that not only we're helping these students when it comes to behavioral health, we're providing the wraparound services to their families, making sure that they meet the needs. And some people
Yeah.
may look at kids that have drug, you know, if you catch kids with drugs in school, that is an easy arrest. It is an easy arrest. You get the dope, you take the kid, and you go. They go to jail.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
always say that you can lock up the wolf that's been killing your chicken. You can catch the wolf that's been killing your chickens and lock it up in a cage. That solves your problem, but it doesn't help the wolf. And when you think about arresting kids, that does not solve the problem because you got a kid that's addicted to drugs. You arrest them. When they get out, they're still addicted to drugs. So we look at it when you got a kid that's self-medicating or they're using drugs. We look at that, they're trying to escape reality. They've got social emotional issues. We look at that as a kid in crisis. And our goal is not to criminalize a kid who is struggling with life and they're using their drugs as coping mechanisms. We want to help them get over that so that when they get to 25, they get to 30, they can look back and say, Lord, I look back and wonder how I got over. You know, and they can look back and
Yeah.
say, it was the police that helped me out of those. So that's one of the reasons we have behavioral health as the pillar. The final pillar is student advocacy. Our officers are trained to advocate for our students. If they're critical, if you got victimless crimes, particularly if you got victimless crimes, you got a student that's engaged in behavior that may be reckless, irresponsible, juvenile, and it puts them on the doorstep of the criminal justice system. What we're doing is we're making sure that we rely on the partnerships and relationships that we've already built with the district attorney's offices, the county attorney's offices, juvenile services, so that we can help these kids and we can divert them from the criminal justice system and get them the resources that they need. And they're hearing the officers advocate for them, not letting that defense attorney advocate for them. And there are many times you'll have in school settings where the administrators want a kid arrested because, again, they want to get them out of that environment because they want to restore the peace. they're going to hear us, and like they have, and they will continue to hear us advocate for these students. We will not get involved in disciplinary matters. We will not get involved in student code of conduct matters. And if there's those gray areas where you have a kid that's been, for example, in a fight or mutual combatants, in Texas, it is a Class C misdemeanor. It's an offense.
Mm-hmm.
And some schools may want these kids written citations. We're not doing that. We're giving it to the administrators. You handle this administrative. You get the parents involved, but law enforcement shouldn't be involved in that lens because at that level. Because if we are, we're going to be these kids are going to be hearing us saying the police don't need to be involved in this. You need to take care of this. Call their mama. That's what they're going to hear from us, and so then they're going to see that we're following up with them to make sure that things are going all right with them, so that they see that we care. Because at the end of the day, I look at some of these kids and some of the things that they've gone through. I look at some of these families and some of the things that they've gone through. I see me. I see my family. I see
Mm-hmm.
but for the grace of God, I could have been some of these people that are in
Yes,
jail. I could have
yes.
been some of these students that have been struggling. But because I had people that saw in me and gave me the opportunity, that it looked over my faults and my flaws. We have to do that. Even if my career, I'm in my 27th year. Even in 27 years in law enforcement, if I can help one kid, I've done that. I've succeeded. There's a kid. That we were doing a case study, and there was a kid. He was not. He's a grown man. He was doing a case study. He was. I think he was like 26 years old, and he talked about how he was in high school. He'd committed crimes, and he had been arrested as a juvenile, and then he got arrested at 17 in Texas, and for marijuana. He said, and he got the cases dismissed. So he was arrested, but there, it shows up on your your CCH. It shows up one arrest or three arrests and no convictions. And
Yep.
so he grew up and matured and had some kids, and he wanted to build a life with his kids and his family. And he would apply for jobs, and he couldn't get the jobs, and because he had that criminal record, no arrest.
Mm-hmm.
And he would tell them, "Well, I got arrested, no conviction." He said, "I got arrested, but I wasn't convicted." And they're like, "Well, this guy didn't get arrested." So
Yeah.
and
Yep.
he said something that was super profound. He said, "I wonder what I could have become had someone intervened." And when you think about that, you think about the opportunities that we have as black and blue, as administrators, the opportunities that we have to create an environment, to create a department that aligns with
Yes.
that vision and mission and values. So it's kind of like Tupac used to say, one person teach one people teach two people, three people teach four people. Those people teach more people. So when you when you create an environment
Yeah.
where they're
Yeah.
doing that, I mean, the trickle down effect is like raindrops and manna from heaven. So we have that opportunity, and I think it is a waste if we, as law enforcement officers, particularly black and brown and minorities and those that come from marginalized populations, if we don't seize the moment to help not only our own but all students, so that all students, and even when you've got white students who, if they see that you're giving more attention to one group or another, now that's inequitable. So we have to make sure that we're
Yes.
treating all of our kids the
Yeah.
same. And it's
You know.
important that we do that.
Chief, it's funny that you do say that, because that is one of my shortcomings that I recognize. I was just telling my wife that the other day, that black and brown communities really see us adversely as police officers. So I kind of made it my mission when I got into this high school, was to approach these communities, these students, and just buddy up with them and talk to them
Mm-hmm.
every day. I'm out there during the passing periods. I'm out there during lunch, and so now they come up to me and they not only give me information, but we chop it up. We talk about hip hop, and we just talk about all sorts of
Yeah.
things. And I consciously am thinking now, wow, I'm talking to a lot of these black and brown kids. I actually need to go out and talk to some of these white kids, some of these
Yeah.
Asian kids, just to let them know that, I'm not, for one, I'm not playing favorites, but two, because in my mind, I'm kind of thinking, well, these other communities, they don't see the police negatively. So they don't need to see us that much, but that's wrong. That is wrong, though, because that for one, that's being profiling. Saying that other races don't see the police negatively or positively, for that matter. There are a lot of black kids that see the police positively. But so I need to. That's one of my shortcomings, that I need to actually make sure that that actively go out there and combat that. But I still love that these black and brown kids will come up to me, and and that's not something that was done previously. So I'm proud of that, but I do need to actually go out there and make those steps to be more inclusive, and I see that, and I know that.
But but again, it goes back to what we were saying is meeting all of our students at their need, and
Yeah.
we know what we need. We know what we need. We need people like you. We need people like me. We need people like us who are showing our our kids who have had those historically negative mindsets about us and what we do and what we believe and what we're about. We need to show them that we're not that. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
those that are like that are the extreme minority in law enforcement. The large majority of us getting in this, it's about showing and it's about making a difference and making an impact on life. I had one of my officers. He was a former Dallas police officer. He worked there, and then he came and worked for me, and he was telling us in one of our meetings about a kid on his campus who he had been trying to build a relationship with, and he was a young black male, and so this officer is a black male, and he was like, Chief, he said, he told us in a meeting that he would approach him, and they would talk and chit chat, and they would cut it up for a bit, and he said one day he ended up making some great gains, and the kid initially was standoffish, but man, he was like he'd go out his way to look for him. Then he said one day he was looking for him and he wasn't there. A couple of days later, and this again, remind you, this officer is talking about this in a staff meeting of our entire department. He said he went looking for him, he couldn't find him. So he was gone for 3 or 4 days, and he said eventually he was talking to an AP and asked about it. The AP told him that this kid was shot and killed in Mississippi.
Mm.
And so while the officer is telling us this grown man, this brother stands up. I mean, gets out because he's crying. He's broken over this, and he's thinking, "I wish I could have done more. I
Yeah.
wish there was something. I wish I could have connected with him to let him know that that life wasn't about that life. That life don't end in a good life." And
Yeah.
getting him to know that, and so he was broken over that. And but the beautiful thing about it that people miss when we talk about people wanting to defund police, that's what you defund. You
Yeah.
defund those that love our kids. You defund those that
Yes.
got in this for the right reason. And when and so we also hear about defunding police in schools and people not wanting police in schools. Here in Texas, we have the law. We have 37.015, and what that tells, and that's in the education code. It says that school districts shall call police. And some people are like, well, we don't want police in schools. Well, the law says you're going to have to call them, and some may say, well, oh, that's just because of if there's a shooting or if there's an aggravated assault or if there's a major event. No, it even says drug paraphernalia. It even says possession of marijuana. Why? Because those are evidence. So you're going to have to call law enforcement. So the question comes down to, if you don't want police in schools, who are you getting? Because you can't control the mindset, the training, the temperament of the officer so that you're calling it off the street. They're geared different. It's not saying that they're bad, it's just they're geared different. You
Yeah.
can't give a John Deere tractor to a NASCAR racer, and you can't give a NASCAR car to a farmer,
Yeah.
because they won't serve their purposes. They're
Right.
both good in their own right. And so when you talk about street officers, we're trained historically. We're trained in um, the code of criminal procedure. We're trained in the penal code. We're trained in traffic law. We're trained in health and safety code. We're trained in all of those things, but we're not
Mm-hmm.
well trained in how to handle juveniles. But one thing we do know is if you got drugs in a juvenile, you go and you take the drugs, you take the juvenile, you take them to juvenile processing center, you drop them off, you drop the dope off at evidence, and you go back to 10-8. And
Yep.
but what are you getting? There's
Yep.
zero
Yeah.
advocacy there.
Yep.
So when you have
None.
officers in the school district, they're able to build those relationships. They're able to advocate for these students. They're able to become that accountability partner with those kids for the parents to make sure that these kids are doing the right thing. You miss out on so much if you decide you want to get rid of police in schools.
Absolutely. And I have so much respect for departments that are dedicated to doing this for, for their, their whole career, 20, 30-year law enforcement career. In my case, it's an assignment. It's a 4-year assignment, and then I move on to do something else. So, much respect to you guys that are doing this every day for 10, 20, 30 years. Much respect.
and,
Yeah.
and I appreciate you. And I think I love the process that y'all have. Doing the 4-year term there, because you leave there with a great understanding and a better appreciation, and a greater respect for what our kids are going through, and
Yeah.
making sure that you are that pathway above and beyond those hurdles that may stand in their way. And it's not like we're going out here and we're just carte blanche giving a free pass on all the nonsense. No, no, no. But
No.
here's the thing: we want to make sure that we're giving every student, every young kid, every chance possible to
Yes.
succeed and overcome, so that they don't have to live the rest of their life having to pay for a reckless, juvenile, irresponsible decision that they made when they were in high school.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
got people still doing that now.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you talk about building relationships. I had a kid that I built a relationship with that eventually got expelled and had to go to one of the county schools. But during COVID, when the school was locked down, during the distance learning, the patrol had a call for a domestic dispute going on at this apartment complex, and I heard the name over the radio, and I said, "Oh, that's so and so. Let me go over there and see what was up." So, there was the family came out. They say, he's up in there. He's got a knife. He's got a weapon. So they surrounded the house, and you can hear him yelling, hollering, hooting from the street. So I just rolled up and I said, "Hey, we'll call him Johnny for this scenario here. It's, hey, Johnny." And he looked out. He said, "Officer Peters, what's up?" And he came. I said, "Man, come on out here." And I talked to him, calling him, "What's going on, man?" So, and then we chopped it up, and there was no crime. He didn't have a weapon. He said, "Oh, you know what? Me and my girl, we just going through some things. Hey, man, can I take you somewhere?" But without that relationship, and me being a
Yeah.
police officer as well, I mean, not to say that the patrol couldn't have handled that in the same manner. It may have taken a little bit longer and still safely. But me just yelling in there, "Hey, Johnny, it's me.
Hmm.
Cool out.
Yeah.
Chill out, man. Come on out." And he came out
Yeah.
just like that. Those
Yeah.
relationships in the school.
It makes a difference. It really does. And the beautiful thing about that, he didn't see that uniform. He saw you, and you
Yes.
made that connection. I mean, in the investment in you. So he may not trust the circumstances. He may not trust the environment. He may not trust the words saying, and or whoever's saying to come out. He may not trust the fact that if he comes out, he's going to come out safe. But when you were there, based upon that track record, based upon that relationship, he recognized that he could trust you. And if you
Yeah.
said come out, it was okay to come out. And then that goes back to why it's important to build these relationships, because
Yeah.
people don't want officers dealing with kids and they don't want kids dealing with officers in school, and you want to get rid of them. Guess what? Those same kids coming out of the schools potentially will deal with officers on the streets at some point.
Yep.
So
Yep.
why not build those relationships? Because think about how that situation could have turned out had you not been there, Dale, to
Yeah.
deal with that situation.
I
And
agree.
and so that's the thing. It pays dividends in them, and it also inspires them when they look at you. It's like where I grew up, the only person that I saw that made it out of the hood for good was my dad. And so guess
Yeah.
what? That was the best role model that I could see. So that's what I
Yes.
became. So some of these kids are doing the same. You ask kids when they're little, what do you want to be? You want to be a fireman or a cop? They're gonna say nope. They want to be a fireman.
Nope.
They don't want to be. They want.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
that's
not.
right. If,
We
if they don't want to be a hustler, yeah, or a
yeah.
rapper or a baller or something, yeah,
Exactly.
exact,
Exactly. So
yep, yep,
I mean, we do have that opportunity to change the way people look and view police. And we can do it by, like I said, change. We behaved our way into this. A lot of this, we have to behave our way out of it. And and it's like one of my officers. We were watching a shooting in our meetings. One of the things we do is we go over current events. We'll talk about shootings where officers are involved in, where black citizens were killed by white officers. Um, and vice versa. We talk about these things. We talk about this as a collective, diverse body. And there was a situation here in Texas where a guy was breaking up a fight. A brother was breaking up a fight in Wolf City. He was breaking up a fight at a convenience store. He called the police. The officer got there, and the officer, the people that were involved in the fight, had left, and so this brother stayed there and waited for the police. When the police officer got there, he was like, "You're drunk," and the guy's like, "No, I'm not," and he's like, "Yes, you are. Turn around." And the guy's like, "I'm the one that called you." So the officer grabbed the guy, and the guy's like, "Man, get off me! I haven't done anything." He tases the guy. The guy turns and he shoots and kills him. We talked about this because it's like, that's heartbreaking when this stuff is happening so many times. Something needs to change. And so we talked about, and I asked one of the questions in the meeting. I said, how do we change this? And one of the officers in there, she said, "Chief, if we're the model for school policing, and if we're going to be that model, that change has to start with us, because we're at ground level dealing with the kids that are going to grow up to be those young men. So
Yep.
we have an opportunity not only to change the mindset of kids who may be like the black young man that was killed and lost his life, we also have the opportunity to change the minds and the livelihood and approach of kids that may grow up to, that could potentially have become officers like the officer that did that.
Yeah.
The
Yep.
impact that we have in law enforcement in schools is tremendous. And we're long gone are the days where it's like you said earlier, a job where you can retire on the job, or you you these officers can't make it on the street, so you put them in the schools, or these are the ones that we can do without, so we're going to give to the schools.
No.
Those days are over with. It is a
No.
specialized area of law enforcement, and you have to be highly trained at a level far beyond, because like I said, any patrol officer can, any school district police officer can be a patrol officer, but not every patrol officer can be a school district police officer.
Amen. Amen. All right. Well, I appreciate everything you said today. It's some good stuff that we got, and I hope the viewers got that as well. Like I said, I have much respect for educational law enforcement entities, and you're doing good work over there. Appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you, Dale, and I thank you so much for what you're doing and giving Black and Blues a voice to talk about who we are and what we do and why we do what we do. The motivation factor is very, very important to get that message out. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, during the pregame here, and actually, real quick, I want to get to you because earlier you had some football metaphors, and I know in Texas football is king. So, what are you a Cowboy fan?
You know, I used to be until Tony Romo came along.
What? What? I thought Romo was the savior. Romo was the
brother.
savior.
Oh, man.
Nah.
When
So
you
who
have somebody,
So who you rolling with
whenever you're
now?
saying that, you know, I change. Now in Texas, what motivates me more than the NFL? I watch a lot of college football.
There you go.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm a college football fan now.
Yeah, college, and high school football, all kinds of football in Texas is
Yeah,
it. But
yeah.
yeah, Friday Night Lights, that's Texas right there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
no doubt,
really
no
is,
doubt.
brother. Nothing like it.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so before I get you out of here, though, like I told you, I'm gonna test your knowledge of trivia. So this game here I got for you is called
Black or blue, 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 black or blue.
it's called Black or Blue, Black or Blue. Your game today is called Movie Characters. Movie characters. I'm gonna give you a name of a person that appeared in the movie, and you tell me, was that character black, meaning he's just a black civilian? Is he blue, meaning he's a non-black cop? Or is he black and blue, like you and I, a black cop? So you got three choices: black, blue, or black and blue. All right, you'll get the hang of it pretty quick. All right, so here's your first one here. Your first one is Eric Brooks. Eric Brooks. What do you think? Black, blue, or black and blue? He is black. Whoa, wrong one there. Yes. Eric Brooks is Blade. Blade. That's played by Wesley Snipes. So he is black. I guess you could say he was the law, regulating those vampires in the Blade movie.
Absolutely.
But you got that one right there. All right. How about your next one here? How about Craig Jones? Craig Jones.
Black and blue.
Oh, unfortunately, no, that's Craig from Friday.
Man, I never knew Craig's last name was Jones.
Yeah, Craig Jones. Yeah, Pops and Day Day.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, Craig Jones was black. All right. How about your next one? How about Daryl Ward? Daryl Ward.
Daryl Ward. I'm gonna go black and blue.
Ah, that is correct. Daryl Ward, played by Will Smith in the movie Bright. I don't know if you ever saw that one. It was like some kind of futuristic. Yeah. All right. So, all right. You got that one in. All right. How about your next one? How about Jack Hoyt? Jack Hoyt.
Blue.
He is blue. Yes. Jack Hoyt from Training Day, played by Ethan Hawke there. All right. Cool. You on a roll here. You on a roll. How about Ron Stallworth? Ron Stallworth.
I'm gonna say blue.
That would be incorrect. Halfway there. That's black and blue. If you saw Black Klansman.
Oh man, I saw that one.
Yes, actually, true story. So he
exactly.
More than a movie character. Yeah. So yes, he is black and blue. Yep, black and blue. All right. How about your next one here? How about Harry Callahan?
Harry Callahan. I'm gonna say blue.
He is blue. We all know Dirty Harry Callahan, no doubt. Played by Clint Eastwood. Still on the roll here. How about Ricky Baker? Ricky Baker. Ricky
was black.
Ricky was black. Yes. Ricky from Boys in the Hood.
Got shot running down the got shot running down the alley.
Yep, run. See, you know for real. All right.
Yeah.
How about Billy Costigan? Billy Costigan.
I'm gonna have to go with a blue name on that one.
That is correct. That was from The Departed there, Leo. Yep, that was another great movie. Like that movie a lot. A couple more here for you. How about this one? You should know this. Apollo Creed.
That's black.
That is definitely black. Had to throw you an easy one there just in case.
Yeah, I'm a boxing fan, so
all right.
You told me those all day long. I'd be tempted in.
Yeah, no doubt. Just in case, things were going kind of awry there, I had to throw you a bone there. At least one good one. Couple more. How about Russell Stevens? Russell Stevens.
Black.
He is black, but he's also black and blue. That's from that movie Deep Cover. Lawrence Fishburne. Yeah, I wouldn't have remembered his name either. So for every easy one I throw at you, I gotta throw you a hard one.
Hey, I'm game, brother. I'm gonna swing. Right. I'm swinging for the fences.
Yeah, you are. And here's your last one here. Harper Stewart. Harper Stewart.
Blue.
Oh, I thought you knew that one. That's he's man, black from The Best Man. Tay Diggs, yes. Tay Diggs, yeah. Yep. But you know what? I think you got more right than you got wrong, so we're going to call you the winner.
There you go.
All right. Appreciate that. Yeah. You got more right than you got wrong there. A couple I had to throw you for a loop there. I thought you would have gotten Harper, though. I thought you would have gotten Harper from The Best Man. Yeah, I know the mind goes blank there.
Slipping.
Yeah, no doubt. But you got Ricky. You will. Ghetto Boys, they from your neck of the Texas. Well, I don't know about your neck of the woods.
H-Town.
Houston, H-Town. Yeah. What's his name? Willie D got a podcast too that's pretty trippy.
Does he really?
Yeah, he does.
Wow.
Yeah, he does. So check that out.
Scarface ran for city council there in Houston.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, Scarface was the man. Yeah, he had lyrics.
Man, I did.
Yeah.
One of my tops.
Deep brother right there.
Yeah.
All right, Chief. I appreciate you coming on and espousing some great knowledge about the educational system and law enforcement and police work. Why don't you tell everybody real quick on your way out what they should know about educational law enforcement in your department on the way out here?
Well, I think everyone should know that Round Rock ISD has created the model for school policing, and it is going to be transformative. I'm excited about what I'm doing. I just got I'm actually writing a textbook on redefining school policing. And I think that what I'm doing in Round Rock is going to be something that you're going to see that's transcending school policing around this country. And uh, we're doing what others are talking about. You know, people are saying that law enforcement needs to change. Well, we're changing. They're saying that law enforcement needs to be a different type of law enforcement in a manner to where people are being served and met at their need and seen the human equation is not being discounted. We're doing that. And I tell you, there's a fire that's been started here in this community and in this department. And we have officers that have come from uh, Chicago Police Department, officers from Portland, Maine, officers from Arizona. We've got officers coming into this department that are excited to align with the vision and mission. And at the end of the day, the goal is to make sure that our kids are best served and that they can have the best opportunity to succeed. Because if we have an opportunity to help them succeed and we don't, we failed, and so have they.
Facts. All right, Chief. Love everything you said today, man. I appreciate you, and you go out there and be safe, and hopefully your department and everything out there will grow, and we'll see you on the other side.
Appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much, Dale, and thank you for all you do. And you be safe as well, and keep representing, brother, because it takes people like you that motivate and inspire people like me, and to become people like you and I.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Yes, y'all. That's it for this episode of the Black and Blue Podcast. I want to thank Chief Jeffrey Yarbrough of the Round Rock Independent School District Police Department for hanging out with me here today. I love everything you said here and hope you enjoyed your time with us as well. If you guys out there enjoyed this episode, make sure you give it a YouTube like or rate it 5 stars on whatever podcast platform you're hearing me right now. I'll be back in a couple weeks with another fantastic interview, but till then, y'all know what to do. Stay black and blue. I'll holler at you. Peace.
This has been a Maitre D' Entertainment presentation.